Post 1. I can't keep this secret anymore. Posted by You Throwaway Cleaner. I have to get this out there. I'm not looking for sympathy or judgment. I can't carry this by myself anymore. A few months ago, I answered a Craigslist ad. The job was house cleaning. Quick cash. High pay. No name, just an address in a quiet neighborhood. My family needed the money. My mom's sick, and we're barely scraping by with all the medical bills. I thought it would be a quick, simple way to make some extra cash. When I showed up, a man, I'll call him Mr. Brown, answered the door. He looked like any other middle-aged guy, polite, with a faint smile, even friendly in a way that immediately put me on edge. But I brushed it off. He led me through the house, small talk all the way, until we reached the basement door. He opened it, flicked on the light, and gestured for me to go down first. I hesitated, but the pay was too good to turn back. I don't think I'll ever forget what I saw at the bottom of those stairs. The basement was cold and smelled like something damp and metallic. The walls were lined with strange medical equipment, some of it rusted, some of it used. The floor was sticky in places, and in the corner was a metal table, stained dark. I knew it wasn't just paint. When I turned to leave, Mr. Brown was standing at the top of the stairs, blocking my way. He just looked at me, almost like he'd expected my reaction. He said he'd pay me well to clean up after his work, and that as long as I kept my mouth shut, he'd make sure I never wanted for cash again. I should have left. But the money, it was enough to cover the surgery my mom desperately needed. Post 2. What I have to clean. I don't know how to say this without going into detail that'll get this post removed, so I'll be as vague as I can. Mr. Brown does things in that basement, things that no sane person should see. The first time I cleaned, I thought I could pretend it wasn't as bad as it looked. Just mop up the floors, wipe down the surfaces, empty the bins into bags, and go. But each time I went back, it got worse. It's like he wanted to push me, see how much I could take before I'd break. The hardest part is the smell. It clings to you, follows you home. I'd shower, wash my clothes, scrub my hands raw, and I'd still smell it. I started lying to my family about where I'd been, coming up with excuses for why I'd go silent for hours or why I'd look so drained. But Mr. Brown paid well. It felt like he knew exactly what I needed to keep coming back. Post 3. The warning. After a month of this, I was close to the amount I needed for mom's surgery. I thought I could tough it out a little longer, just a few more times. But Mr. Brown started acting strange, even stranger than usual. He'd call late at night, just to remind me to come the next day, his tone eerily calm. There were even times he'd casually mention my mom's condition in ways that made my blood run cold, like he knew more than he should. I'd ask myself how he even knew she was sick, but I was too afraid to ask. I started feeling watched, even when I wasn't at his house, like someone was in my shadow, just out of sight, just waiting. Post 4. Final payment. Last week, I went to his house for what I thought would be the last time. I had the last bit of money I needed, and I was determined to never go back. When I tried to leave, Mr. Brown stopped me, handed me an envelope of cash, and said, "See you next time." I stammered, trying to tell him that this was it, that I'd done enough. His smile vanished, replaced by something that made my stomach twist. "I think we both know you'll be back," he said. That night, I got a call from him. I didn't pick up. Post 5. Ignoring him. I thought maybe if I ignored his calls, he'd leave me alone. My phone buzzed constantly, and every time his number popped up, my heart raced. I silenced the calls, turned off my notifications, even blocked the number once, though that only lasted an hour before I unblocked it, too scared of what he'd do if he couldn't reach me. Then the texts started. They were short at first, almost casual. "Everything okay? Are you still available?" But then they turned darker. "You owe me," one said. Another just read, "Remember what's at stake." The worst part? 2 days later, I found a note slipped under my door. It just said, "You know what will happen if you don't answer next time." Post 6. The return. I went back to his house today. I didn't even knock. He opened the door before I could, like he'd been watching me. He just smiled, motioned for me to come in, like we were old friends. My stomach churned the whole time, but I followed him back to the basement. When we got there, he handed me gloves and pointed at the mess waiting for me. I tried not to look, tried to numb myself to what I was doing. As I was leaving, he stopped me again. He leaned close, his voice a whisper. You'll come back, he said, because if you don't, I can make life very difficult for your mother. Remember that. 7. The guilt. It's been a few days since I was there, and I feel like I'm losing my mind. I keep hearing things outside my door, footsteps that fade away before I can look. And that smell, it's everywhere. No matter how much I clean myself, my clothes, my apartment, it's like it's seeped into my skin. I hate myself for going back. I hate that I need his money. I can barely sleep. And when I do, I dream of that basement, that table, the things I've had to see and touch and clean. Part of me wants to go to the police, but what would I even say? He's got something over me now, something I can't break away from. I feel like he's in my head, like he's watching, waiting for me to slip up. I don't know what to do. I'm trapped. Post 8, the final call. Tonight, he called again. I almost didn't answer, but I could feel him watching. I don't know how, but it's like he was already there, expecting me to pick up. I've got another job for you, he said, his voice calm, familiar. I tried to say no to tell him I was done, but he just laughed, a low, quiet sound that made my skin crawl. You know what happens if you don't you? I didn't respond. I just hung up, my hands shaking. I keep telling myself that this will be the last time, but I know it's a lie. Maybe he's right. Maybe I'll always come back.